Hello, welcome to Olio, my show. My name is Susan Rushton, and I need, as always, to tell you what Olio means. Olio is short for olla podrida, which is Spanish for rotten bowl, or rotten pot, which I just get such a kick out of. It's a Spanish-Portuguese dish with essentially everything in the world in it. Pork in all its iterations, pig's feet and sausage and bacon, probably pulled pork somewhere. Let's see, chicken, chickpeas, cabbage, carrots, other beans, onions, and garlic, undoubtedly. As I said, everything in the world in it except Cheerios and ginger ale. That's one definition. Another definition is that olio is what comes in between acts of a melodrama. So you might have somebody juggling, you might have somebody singing, you might have somebody doing a skit, and none of it has anything to do with anything else, and none of it has anything to do with the melodrama. So in other words, it's apples, oranges, and a monkey wrench. So welcome to my monkey wrench. Today, my guests are two committee members. You are on the committee or on the organization?
We're part of the organization.
Okay. This is Jane Wurst and Bart Rude from Protect Rural Placer. And you've probably heard about Protect Rural Placer. And if you want to learn more or help, log on to protectruralplacer.com or email them at protectruralplacer@gmail.com. So, this is one side of the argument, and I'm conscious that we are not having the other side of the argument, but we're listening to this one. So, what is Bart? What's Protect Rural Placer?
Susan, thank you for having us on your show today. Protect Rural Placer is really a grassroots organization formed by residents, longtime residents, agriculturalists in the Bell Road, Kramer Road, Lone Star Road area north of Auburn.
Okay.
And our interest in protecting rural placer is really twofold. One, we want to protect agricultural interests. Our area there is historically an agricultural area. I'm a member of a farm family. My family has had its farm since 1940, but before that, the area was homesteaded in 1852. In 1854, William Kramer Sr. purchased the property from the original homesteader.
Okay.
And so you see there's about 166 years of agriculture going on the Rude family farm. Yeah. And that's just a part of what goes on in the general area.
Yes.
So we're interested in protecting agriculture, and we're interested in avoidance of urbanization, if you will, of a rural farming community, a historic farming community.
Okay, so that's the background.
That's the background.
Worried that there's encroachment going on.
Yes.
Being planned. Okay.
Yes.
Why is it being planned for there, Jane?
Well, Placer County Parks Commission has been planning an expansion of the current Hidden Falls Regional Park for numerous years, several years, and they have tried to gain access at various points into this area along Bell Road into what we call Big Hill area. Big Hill is an agricultural community. It is actually a private gated community, and within that Big Hill property, you will see that Placer Land Trust has several preserves of several thousand acres, and those are currently leased by local cattle ranchers, my husband and I being one of them.
Careful.
And so when we think about Protect Rural Placer, we're protecting not only our North Auburn area, but we're also spilling over into the Big Hill area, which goes across into Lincoln. And so we are finding there's a lot of support for protecting rural placer among people across Placer County, because they see this project as moving into agricultural areas, rural areas that will be paved over and turned into urban recreation sites, very large urban recreation site which hundreds of people daily, 365 days a year from dawn to dusk, will certainly impact hundreds and hundreds of local residents.
And Susan, may I add something to that, please? Not only is it an agricultural issue, it is also a cost issue. It's an economic issue. And it's an economic issue because the county has proposed this expansion of the trail system, and they have a line item in the budget that looks like $18 million for development of infrastructure and trails. That means that every
$19 million.
$18 million.
$18 million.
$18 million.
Wow. Okay.
And that means that every taxpayer in Placer County will feel some of the brunt of this trail expansion. We have about 30 miles of trails presently in the Hidden Falls area in the park.
Uh-huh.
And this would be an extension of that trail system, adding another approximate 30 miles of trails. And so...
And isn't that a good thing?
Well,
Isn't that good?
yes, I do hear people say that it's a good thing.
This is a devil's advocate question.
Yes, absolutely, and that's a fair question. So we have a dichotomy of interests. We have those who believe in recreation, outdoor recreation. I believe in outdoor recreation. I'm sure most people do. But what some fail to recognize is that this is encroachment on the agricultural industry, which is a big industry in Placer County. In year 2017, according to the latest county statistics, the cattle industry was the #1 commodity in Placer County.
Okay.
Over $9.9 million in commodity from the cow-calf industry in Placer County. So this is an encroachment, if you will, on agriculture, and we all know where our food products come from. They begin on the farm, on the ranch. And so it's an economic issue for agriculturalists, but it's an economic issue for the taxpayers also.
Okay.
In support of, first of all, the $18 million of upfront expense, and then the ongoing expense that will go on, let's just suggest, in perpetuity, if the project were permitted to go forward.
Why would it be, the expense go on in perpetuity?
Trail maintenance,
Okay.
law enforcement needs, all kinds of issues, and it goes far deeper than that. We have some experience and background in Placer County with the management of the Hidden Falls Park and the residents of that local area. And we know what that might mean to our neighborhood compared to what it has meant and continues to mean to the people at Mears Road, Mears Court area.
Okay.
The sole entry at present to Hidden Falls.
So I can imagine that there are, what I'm hearing is this, the big picture, taxes, the problem with interrupting the ancient and respected and fulfilling agricultural process, and the businesses and the families there. And I can also imagine that, damn it, you don't want these people wandering all over your backyard. Is that a part of it too?
Well, the not in my backyard issue, the reason we don't want it in our backyard is because our backyard is cattle grazing land. There will be several thousand acres of cattle grazing land that will be lost to cattle grazing. Because when you put an urban trail system with hundreds of people out there, we know, as at Hidden Falls, they don't have cattle. And once you don't have cattle, that increases the fire danger.
Did they get rid of the cattle at
They did. They opted, when they developed that property for the home development as well as Hidden Falls, they opted not to have cattle. And so we have been told that there will absolutely be no cattle, which affects about 5 different cattle ranchers up over Big Hill will be impacted by loss of thousands of acres of grazing land. And with that, we feel that this project violates the homeowner's rights to keep their home, their property, their family, and their community safe. Because the minute you have hundreds of people on these hills it increases the danger of fire, and we all are very, very aware of fire danger right now in California. And we also know that it increases the likelihood of crime, trespassing, people going onto private property. When you see this map and you see the Big Hill property, you'll see that the the 3 or 4 Placer Land Trust properties, which the trails will primarily be on, are at the south end and the north end of this project. Well, in between is all private property, several thousand acres of private property, which they have purchased some trail easements through. These trail easements take people through private property, and we know that people on horseback, cycling, and hiking do not stay on trail. They go looking for water. They go looking for a great spot to have their picnic. They decide, oh, there's a better view over there. So we know that people will be trespassing. That increases the likelihood of altercations for the homeowners with people that are trespassing.
Wow.
We already have it up there on Big Hill and where my husband and I live on Oar Creek Lane. So we know that it's going to impact agriculture, fire safety, and road safety, which is another big issue that I'd like to get into at some point.
All right. So when you have approached authorities, the city council and the supervisors, what have they said?
Well, we have had meetings with each of the supervisors, and they've been very receptive to hearing from us. I really give them a lot of credit because in their busy schedules, they've each taken time to sit down with us with a group of representatives from Protect Rural Placer. Several of them have already come out on a ride-along tour of the area to see what the roads are really like, our narrow, winding, curvy roads with blind corners and no center lines and no bike lanes. So they've been out there, and we have, we're hopeful that we will have the rest of the supervisors come out over the next month.
What have they? How did this? But before they came out, they made this. They seemed to make this decision.
Susan, dating myself a little bit, going back to the month of May, about May 20th or 21st, we learned the day before a Board of Supervisors meeting that the supervisors would be looking at this issue of the purchase of the so-called Twilight Ride property, LLC, a 50-acre parcel on Bell Road, fronts on Bell Road and backs up against some of the preserves of the Big Hill area, shall we say. And the proposal is that there would be the installation there of a parking lot that would hold 100 vehicles and 40 horse trailer, truck trailer rigs. So this would provide a second access, albeit it's an indirect access to Hidden Falls Park, but it would give them access, big users access to the lands behind the Wurst property or west of Bell Road, shall we say, and when you reference the map you'll understand. So there is a ridge line there that basically runs to the north, clear to the Bear River.
So they informed you. You learned about this the day before.
The day before, there was no notification of anyone, any adjacent property owners,
phone calls,
no one.
Mail, no.
So
email.
we showed up at the several of us showed up at a Board of Supervisors meeting to ask them to slow down the process so that the neighborhood could become informed. Well, fast forward to June 10th when we had a neighborhood meeting attended by about 80 residents of Bell Road, Kramer Road, Lone Star Road. And it was at that point in time that we put together our little ad hoc group, our grassroots group, if you will, Protect Rural Placer. And from that point forward, our purpose has literally been to try to, shall I use the word educate? Educate our Board of Supervisors, educate our Parks Department personnel, educate our neighbors who may not be aware, educate our community, our farming community, and educate Placer County residents in general about what lies there. As I've said, this is an economic issue for everyone. And we don't know yet how far-reaching it could be. Back to the point, people need a place to recreate. And I would say, I agree 100% with that. But let us say that is it fair? Let's ask the question, is it fair to decimate an agricultural community for the users of a trail system, and those users would largely come from out of county, who really don't live here and don't feel the impact of what will happen.
Mhm.
So there are places
Let
to recreate.
me interrupt you. When you said this, when you asked the Board of Supervisors to slow down, what was their response?
They looked at us and they listened, and we hope they listened carefully, but they went ahead with their vote to proceed with the purchase of this 50-acre Twilight Ride property. What that has said is that $10,000 would be put in escrow to hold the option open to purchase the 50 acres where the parking lot would go. And they have a year to do some exploration of all of the ins and outs, the subsequent
So this is not
EIR.
necessarily a done deal.
It's not necessarily a done deal. However, the motion in the background would suggest that there's been a lot of planning. I was even told they're chomping at the bit to get going on the trail development. Well, is that putting the cart before the horse? I can't answer that question.
Of course you can.
Theoretically.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. The reality of it is that a lot of thought has gone into this process. And I would say that if people want to recreate, we have tens of thousands of acres in the Auburn State Recreation Area.
Mhm.
That recreation area is patrolled by state rangers who understand the law. And we have the Tahoe National Forest in our backyard. We have the El Dorado National Forest in our backyard with hundreds of thousands of acres combined where people can go to recreate literally at no cost. And there are developed trails, there's undeveloped wildland out there that they can walk around on, ride around on, bicycle on, you name it. All of those amenities are there.
Yeah.
So the question of it is do we ruin an agricultural community with the installation of a trail system that some of us would believe is not totally necessary?
Okay, so you are both very civilized here today. Both of you are civilized. You're using complete sentences. You're not swearing at me or the camera. How did you learn about the Board of Supervisors meeting the day before? How did that happen?
Purely by chance, and I think Jane probably can answer that.
Someone who was reading the agenda for the Board of Supervisors meeting just happened to notice that there was this purchase of the Twilight Ride property that was going to be voted on, and so they alerted a few of us, and that was like Bart said, just a day or two before the meeting. It was after that, about a week or two later, that all the residents in the area received a letter from Placer County stating that there would be a scoping meeting which we'd be allowed to come and speak at, and the Parks Commission would be presenting the project. So
a scoping meeting that you'd be allowed to.
Well,
I'm sorry,
and
I shouldn't be political.
the reality is there was a scoping meeting back on February 21st, 2017, because they were trying to gain access to this Hidden Falls expansion project through Auburn Valley Country Club. And there were several hundred local people in attendance. They were extremely vocal in their opposition. There were people from the Mears Road area, from Garden Bar area, from Lincoln, from Auburn Valley Country Club, from Big Hill, from Kramer and Bell and Lone Star. They were extremely vocal, and people wrote letters, and then that access point was tabled because Auburn Valley put up a fight.
Mm-hmm.
It's a private road, it's a private community. So the supervisors should have, and the Parks Commission should have heard us loud and clear at that point that this community, this large rural community, did not want this going in, and yet they spent another hundreds of $1,000s to keep pushing the project forward, and it resurfaced again in June when they finally had a piece of property that they thought could give them access into it. The access, that 50 acres of the proposed parking lot would be owned by Placer County, but Placer County does not own any of the property in this gated community of Big Hill that will be encroached upon. And so I find it questionable whether it is even legal for the county to provide access to hundreds of people daily into a gated community. These people have 2 private roads to access the Big Hill properties, and they have locked security gates. The only people that have codes to those security gates are the homeowners. And yet there will be another access point or 2 provided now, which would allow hundreds of people daily. And the likelihood, like I said, of trespassing, of people camping. We know that when you have a 60-mile trail system, wow, that gives that backpacker opportunity to spend a day or 2. That gives a homeless group of people access into an area that's not going to be monitored. There won't be rangers or law enforcement personnel out there. And, you know, we just really fear for what's going to happen to this area.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
wow is a big word, and it's I say
it's
the
one
same
syllable, and you both are civilized here, and talking in a civilized manner about something that annoys you.
thing.
It sounds like it also scares you.
Scares us.
And
You know, my husband and I have lived on our property for 44 years, and we will have the parking lot on one side of us. We will lose our lease to Placer Land Trust for our cattle on the west side of us. On the east side of us, Bell Road will be even more dangerous than it is right now. And on the south side of us, Ore Creek Lane is our little road, and it's a private road, but people will be able to see on the internet, on GPS, that, oh, there's direct access into the trail system. And so we'll have a lot of people heading in on Ore Creek Lane, which we do right now. So it is a great concern. And one of your questions about should people be able to hike in this area, why not?
yeah,
Well, I do want to say that all of the Placer Land Trust preserved properties that are part of this, their 4 pieces, are available through Placer Land Trust guided hikes, guided mountain biking, clinics with REI, they call it outdoor school. And so people can sign up through the Placer Land Trust website and actually go out and enjoy these properties when they are with a Placer Land Trust staff member or docent that has the key to the gate and knows how to get in and things like that. But to be open to hundreds of people daily, I mean, when you have 2 access points to get into this, it could even jump to 1,000 people on a day, because we know that up to 500 people use Hidden Falls now on busy days.
yeah. It's the reason I avoid it.
Right. You know, locals do avoid it.
Yeah, sure.
Locals do, because it is not a pleasant place to be in their eyes, because it's way too crowded.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's some unsavory aspects of things out there.
You know, Susan, transitions happen over time. Hidden Falls Regional Park really is a jewel.
Yes, it is.
And we're fortunate to have that. We're fortunate because it's open space. It could have been something other than open space. The park, and you may know the history of it, is composed really of the historic Spears Ranch, located between Lincoln and Auburn. Let's just generalize it in that manner. And that was more than 900 acres. And then the Didion Ranch, again, more than 200 acres, so a total of about 1,200 acres became open space, became the regional park. And it is a jewel, and it is open space, and it is not a housing development,
Right.
leapfrog subdivision type or otherwise. And so people come to recreate, and the greater percentage of use, as I understand it, is out-of-county use. So people look for places like this to go to. Hidden Falls is on at least 30 different websites on the internet. It's worldwide known, no doubt, by people who peruse the internet. And so we fear that Bell Road will turn in, if it becomes an access point at 5345 Bell Road, it will be an access point for more tourism, more recreationists to come to the area. So if we talk about 40 truck trailer rigs and 100 automobiles, that could translate into 240 vehicle trips
I'm
per
thinking
day.
about the artist who does her outdoor ironwork. That curve. Oh
Yes.
my
Well,
God!
Her family is one of the families that was there back in the
Yeah.
early days. She's the fourth generation on that property.
Oh man!
And she knows that her ironworks, which she opens up at different times for open studio, that will end. She says, I know I'll have so many people in here stealing from me. And so she is very concerned. And she lives on the blind curve. It's about a 3-point blind curve that we live next to her as well. And she has said, how many times does she hear people, that crunch of metal, and there's been an accident right on that curve where people have hit a tree. They just take that corner coming downhill too fast. And so there will be an impact traffic-wise, and with the number of people coming in, how it will affect the local, all of the locals dramatically.
I'm supposed to be not on one side or the other, but this sounds alarming. Yes. What is there something? Can you think of a question that you wish people had asked you that you haven't been asked?
I wish we had been consulted about what we might think as a rural agricultural community, how this might impact us. And fortunately, we have the background and the experience of realizing what happened to another agricultural community, the Mears Road, Mears Court area, southwest of Auburn. And so we have that as background, and we fear that the exact same thing will happen. And so I would ask the question, why? If I were asked, what did I think about this? I would say, why do we need it? And I really do fear the economic impact for the agricultural community. Placer County has an agricultural plan, and yet this plan would work against the plan.
Right.
The plan would hopefully sustain agriculture, and this works against agriculture. So it's a dichotomy of interests, and we're a small voice. We're the fewest number of people in the entire population of Placer County. For instance, Placer County has what now, 380,000 people, something like that? But it's not going to be the county users, it'll be the out-of-county users that will be the impact. They will come, they will recreate, they will leave. Will they spend money here? Not a lot of money. My guess, not a lot of money. And yet we will be the ones that will be impacted. I really fear that these kinds of activities will bankrupt the ranching community in that area.
Okay.
I could give you figures about how much forage a cow needs in a given day, but we don't have time for that today.
So, but before we stop, I need to share the website again. This is Protect Rural Placer, protectruralplacer.com. If you want to get involved, email them at protectruralplacer@gmail.com. And certainly there's lots of information and the map and ways to contact supervisors and representatives on that website, protectruralplacer.com. I think that's all we have time for. Bart,
thank you, Susan, for having us here today. Our whole purpose is to try to educate our community.
Yes.
And that is government, and that is the public itself.
Okay.
Because this is a crucial issue. This is something that changes us in perpetuity as we go forward.
Thanks, Bart. Thank you very much, Jane. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again.